Welcome back on deynonmod. Today I want to propose you a video that is about the analysis of the Codex Blood Angels released in December 2017 by the Games Workshop. I decided to do this video waiting a bit because I wanted to analyze a bit better what it was the content inside this codex. If you want to see specific videos that analyze, for example, the stratagems, the world traits and so on, I realized specific videos that treat about them, so if you want to see them in particular, I suggest you to go to see them. To avoid to have a video that is quite long as it will probably be, I prefer to split the video in multiple parts. So in this video there will be an analysis general of the units and the game in general about the Blood Angels, but for the specific videos I suggest you anyway to go to see them, because otherwise really it will be a bit of mess and a lot of talking about it in these videos renewed. So I prefer to split and make a sort of better development of the different themes. But before to analyze the codex in general, what there are as the option, I had to say what I think about of this codex. And I think that this codex is at the same time really great, but quite a delusion. Why do I say that it's quite a delusion if I say that I think that it's quite great? Because the problem is that missed part. What I mean? It means that without playing also the index Imperium 1 with the Blood Angels, you can't play them. Why? Because they miss really part. Inside of this codex, okay, it means quite a lot of options in the different units. So for example, you have units that in the index has certain options, and here you don't find them. And those units are, for example, that Sanguinary Priest with Jump X, the Sanguinary Priest on bike, the Librarian on bike, missing. You want the Chaplain on bike or the Captain on bike, you don't have. The Tech Marine that on the Index Blood Angels was the only one to have the Jump X, here doesn't have the option. And even also doesn't have the bike. It can only be on foot if you consider only the codex of the Blood Angels. And also we can continue. For example, you don't have the Rhino Primaris, the Narrator Excelsior, the Imperial Space Marine, the Sanguinary Novice Priest doesn't have the Jump X2, the same the Company Champion, the really a lot of units that miss a lot of options, and they can be both characters or general units. So this is quite a problem. Luckily, in November 2017, the Games Workshop released a FAQ in a commentary that developed this thing, and so it doesn't miss anymore. But the problem is that you do have to know the FAQ itself, and you had to buy the Index Imperium 1 to play the Blood Angels combined with the Codex Blood Angels itself. So I think that it's quite a mess. I don't think that it's correct, because you can't only buy the Codex and have a complete product. You had the feeling that it's a defective product. It misses a lot of things. There are not quite a lot, okay? You can know what there are that are missing, but you miss things. So you have to bring with you, or at least to have when you create a roster, anyway, both the publications. You can't have to say, okay, the index is old, I use the new one that is the codex, but you had to play both together. You have to first see what there are inside the codex itself. Then, if you know that some options are missing, you can refer to the index of Blood Angels to see and gain the options that are missing. And I think that it's not correct at all, because you have to have both the publication to be able to play. And this doesn't apply only for this Codex Blood Angels, but for all the codex released in this period by the Games Workshop. Sincerely, I would have preferred to have a complete product standalone and not to have also the previous codex, the previous index, to finish to have and play everything as it should be. So in this way I find this codex defective and not satisfying. And after this briefing, demoralizing speeching, anyway, we can start to talk about the positive one. That it's about the codex style, because it's quite positive codex. There are a lot of nice things inside. About the stratagems, the warlord traits and so on, I yet said that I talked in other videos, so I prefer to refer them to say about them. But anyway, there are a lot of addings to this codex. For example, the Contemptor Dreadnought, a lot of different types of Terminator that in the index there were not inside. So there has been quite a few of addings to the units of this codex. So in this case, you can for sure be certain that there are a lot of more variety to play in the game, and even the abilities itself value better such units, and also the other units too, because improve quite a lot the type of games that you can play and the strategies that you can have. The better part about this codex maybe it's the red first, cause it improves quite a lot the combat options that has the codex. Being able to add a 1 to the wound roll, it's quite important, cause it lets different units to be more incisive in what is the combat itself. You can reduce the points that you use for your units, cause simply you don't have to pay, for example, a power fist or a thunder hammer as points to be able to wound at plus, but you can even only choose an axe or a mace or something like similar to be able in a way to wound to a 2 plus against simple infantry. So you don't have to invest such a lot of points against them, and even against other things you have quite a lot of gains, because anyway you have a bonus that you have always have till you charge or you are charged. So it's quite really important as options. And even units basic like a tactical unit or intercessor squad or even the scout squad can be used in quite a developed things, because for example a tactical unit can be able to sustain also cross combat, being able to wound at 3 plus almost every unit. So it's really important as thing. And for example also the intercessor squad become quite important, because it can become as an old standard guard that let you to fire and at the same time to sustain a certain amount of combat. So it's quite interesting. But things also, for example, about the Death Company or the Sanguinary Guard, being able to reduce the points that you invest in them, and at the same time having such a mass of attacks and such a mass of combat can improve the analysis that you have. Small units can be quite more important and having quite a lot of impact in the game. And even the scouts themselves becomes quite important as options, because they are able to resist being a few points and even assault without any problem, because the ability to infiltrate with the ability to be able to charge and so on, they are able to bring a lot of attacks anyway to the opponent without costing too much. And even if you have them resisting, okay, if you play them as a role of shooting, for example I prefer to use them with a missile launcher and a sniper, they become quite interesting, because they be able to fire with the weapon, with the heavy weapon to a part, and then using the sniper to take as target the characters, opponent characters, or to target different units to try to use mortal wounds. So they become quite interesting this way, also because they are not simply sacrificing units as the concept that usually they have, but it can become quite interesting because deploying them on the field, forbidding them and protecting the sites, for example, or certain position to prevent the opponent, for example, to use an AP to come quite close to your main units, they become quite interesting, and they can even resist not only to the fire but also to the combat, because they are able to resist and make damage eventually. So they become quite interesting in this way, and I think that it's one of the main options, this red first, to reevaluate certain units inside the army. So I think that it's one of the main things to take note about. And I talked quite a lot about the red first because I think that it's quite to remember when you play. For example, if you play the characters, because the special characters improve quite a lot using such thing, and the characters in general, because it works both for the charging, both for if you are charged, but also if you do an heroic intervention. So it becomes quite amusing to use such thing. So you have to pay attention to it. One of the things that I think that it's quite not thought to use, but it's quite useful, it's the sanguinary priest, for example, as unit. But cause one option in particular, it's the blood chalice, cause it improves quite a lot the option that you have about combat, cause it adds one to your value of strength, and obviously it's in the close combat. But it's quite important because it lets you, for example, to have units that becomes quite fair, for example, to wound, for example, against opponent units, and you have an improvement in strength. So, for example, if you are battling against something that you need to have a force 9 to wound easily, and then to use the red first together, you can use this one to improve the strength of such weapon. So it becomes quite interesting in this way. So you only need to hype the sanguinary priest. Remember that the options is in the index Imperium 1, so you have to see that to have the jump X for these models. But anyway, using this you'll be able to have a lot more impact on the game, so it becomes quite interesting in this way. But you also have to remember that, for example, for the hype, you have to be doing it being at 9 inches of distance from the opponent. So you have to move because you arrive at the end of the movement, and also you have to know how to charge in the way to have the unit itself within 6 inches from the sanguinary priest to benefit of such bonus. So you have to pay attention to it, because anyway you only need one model to gain the benefit from all the unit. So in this way it's quite interesting. But you also have to remember that if you want, you have also the bike again in the Index Imperium 1 as options for the sanguinary priest. So in this way you can have such option, and having a better deployment, you can move better on the field, but remembering that you can't arrive when you want, you have to be on the field from the beginning. So it's this case that you have to pay attention about it. But I say that sanguinary priests are good, but at the same time sanguinary novices are not so good, because sanguinary novices are not having the blood chalice but only the nartation. Not misunderstand me, the nartation is quite useful because it can heal units, and for example also resurrect a model that can let you having a better resistance in combat, but at the same time it's not so affordable because a unit can only be subject to the narration once for each turn. So even having a lot of narrations working together doesn't improve anything, and it's not sure that using the narration gives you a result, because it is subject to a dice roll. So I think that it's not so good to have. Okay, there is, so if you have and you are playing it, it's good to use, but at the same time I don't think that it's good to base your strategy based only the narration. The blood chalice for myself is the better option to consider the sanguinary priest. In this case I value them quite a lot. Talking about the librarians, I think that as I said in the videos that are about the psionic powers, only the librarian chief Mephiston and the librarian Dreadnought are the ones that should use the combat powers, psychic powers. The other ones I think that are better to boost. Anyway, refer to that to know why I say this, because I explained them in that video why I think explaining the different psychic powers I prefer one or the other version. Anyway, I've seen some playing also the rebranding in close combat. Sincerely, I don't suggest and don't like the idea, but anyway, if you want, you can try it and comment under here if you think that value them in that option. Talking about the chaplains, I think that they are quite good, but I prefer sincerely the special characters about the chaplains to use between them and the normal ones. Anyway, they are quite nice to remember that they are quite good to play the chaplains on the field. Instead, what I really liked about the option about the charters are the captains, that I think that are quite interesting, because they allow you to repeat the one to roll to hit for every unit within 6 inch by them, and it applies both for close combat and shooting, so it can be quite interesting to prevent, for example, the overheating of the plasma guns and so on if you play it in the middle, and so it can be really interesting both for having a shooting army and having it as a sort of pool that can you having to have a lot of a mass of firing added, because it prevents, for example, to ruin some really low hitting phase. So it can be quite interesting in this case, and I think that it's quite useful, and both for combat, because if you put it close to combat units, they can be quite close to having a lot of more value in combat, because repeating the one, if you have a lot of attacks, can be quite good to do. The most part of the Space Marines Blood Angels hit on 3+, so it means that being able to reroll the one add a lot of impact to the opponent, so it's quite interesting thing. And considering the captains themselves, they can be quite a killing machine themselves in close combat, because they hit on 2+ usually. So repeating the one, it means that you have a 2+ rerolling, and then using the red first with the correct weapon, you can have also a 2+ to wound, so it becomes quite interesting as thing. Moreover, if you want to use the stratagems, you can make the captain also a Man in Black, a Death Company member, and it means that gain also quite a lot more of attacks and resilience, so it becomes quite close to be a killing machine, and also improve the units in the surrounding of it. So it's quite interesting. If before the captain was one of the less seen model of everything, because it was rare to see a captain, now I think that it's almost a must. It's really an interesting piece of all the Codex of Blood Angels to use and deploy on the field. Talking about the lieutenants, I think that they are quite good, because they can make reroll the one to wound, and also, as it was for the captain, that it was both for close combat and for the shooting, it's available also here, so it can be used also to reroll the one to wound for the shooting. The problem is that I think that it's less good than the captain, because a single thing as reasonament, that is that with the shooting you have, if you have a high strength for the weapon, you can wound on 2, so you have only to reroll the ones, but for the strength weapon that are for the 4 and the 6, there are quite of options that you see also the 2, the 3 and the 4 maybe risk to be failing rolls, so you'll have only a 1 to roll, and I think that so the captain is a bit better, because it lets you to reroll what you miss. Instead, for the wounding roll, it's a bit less decisive. Anyway, for the close combat can be quite interesting, because in close combat, using the red first, anyway, you can arrive to the 2+, So rerolling the ones, it can be quite interesting, and even with the 3+, it's quite easier to reach in close combat the use of the lieutenant. And in this case, I prefer the captain because I think that it's more versatile. It's my reasonement, and doesn't mean that the lieutenant it's not good. Simply, I prefer the captain to the lieutenant, but the lieutenant it's good to play. Instead, a unit that I think that it's quite not fought good, but it's quite good, is the Tech Marine. If you see the Tech Marine in the Codex Blood Angels, I agree, it's not good because it's only on foot. But if you see the one that is on the index starting one, it becomes another thing because it can have access to the jumpex and to the bike. So it's quite interesting because it can heal the vehicles, and it's quite interesting as thing because being able to using the vehicles better, because if you have a wounded vehicles, it decreases also its options to shoot. Being able to sustain it and to recover the firing of the vehicle, I think that it's quite good. Moreover, if you, as I do, play also the Rhino Primaris that add the possibility to heal also another wound, so you have a range from 2 to 4 wounds to heal a single vehicle. It means also that the opponent will have to concentrate more weapons to kill that unit, so it becomes quite interesting, because if you become, for example, to having again 7 wounds to a vehicles, a single laser it's not anymore sufficient. Even 2 can be not quite good, so you have to have, for example, at least 3 lasers that goes to that vehicles. It means that you decrease the opponent firing to other units, so it becomes quite good in that way. Moreover, if you play as I do, vehicles quite resilient as land raiders, repulsors, and so on. So vehicles that has quite a lot of wounds and are difficult also to wound. In this case, I think that using a combination like this can be quite interesting. Moreover, playing that Tech Marine with the Jumpex let you have a quite interesting thing. Is that you can arrive where you need. So if you have more vehicles, you can really choose where to arrive. Moreover, because the option of the healing is at the end of the phase, of the movement phase. So it means that you can arrive where you need, and so being able to use what you want. And if you want, you have with the Jumpex the possibility to move to 12 inch with the Jumpex, or with the bike of 14 inch. So you can arrive almost where you want using it. Also because it's not restrained by the advancing, so you can also have an editing of the movement. It becomes really quite interesting in this way. So I think that the Tech Marine is quite undervalued, but have a lot of values that can be quite interesting. I suggest you not use more than 2, because the same benefit can be used on more than 1 unit. Or better, the unit can have more than 1 benefit. So the same units can't have 2 Tech Marine using blessing on it, and it's the reason why I chosen to use the Rhino Primaris to use this. So choosing the combination can be quite interesting. Obviously, it's not a must, it's an option that you have, but it's a good option to have. Talking instead about the troops, we have a bit talked before about them. Anyway, I want to remember you that they are quite good. Remember that you have the possibility to use also other battalions other than the battalion detachment 1. So troops are not anymore a must to have inside your roster. What changes is that more CP you have, more value has the Veritas Vitae, that it's one of the best artifacts that you can have with the Blood Angels. So you have to remember that the battalion detachment gives a lot of command points to use, and more command points you have, more stratagems you can use, so more values as the Veritas Vitae and more value as the units themselves, because you have a lot of bonuses to apply to the Blood Angels army. So you have to think if they are comfortable or not. What it's a must to remember, it's the tactical squad, it's a sort of medium. It's a good unit, but not bad, and has a lot of variety of weapons with that, so it's quite interesting as unit. The Intercessor Squad, for my advice, it's one of the best unit because it has a lot of medium and long range of weapons shooting. Okay, not so long, but anyway, medium and a bit longer than medium. So I think that using both that, there can be the auto bolt rifle, the bolt rifle, or the stalker bolt rifle can be quite interesting to use. Sincerely, I prefer the bolt rifle, but they are quite interesting to use such weapons. Moreover, I suggest anyway to buy ever, if you have a bit of point, buy them, the auxiliary granite launcher, cause it's an important thing, because it lets you to have an increasing of the range of the granates. That can be a sort of improving the amount of damage that you can inflict. So it's a sort of interesting thing, at my advice. And remember that it's one of the few units that can embark on a repulsor. The repulsor itself, being a dedicated vehicle, doesn't be limited to the units that can be embarked in, and it's a bit of mess in this case because it should be. But anyway, remember that buying that vehicle, that it's a dedicated vehicle, to this unit, it's quite interesting. You can buy also two other units, but anyway, I think that it's better that the unit suits the vehicle that you buy for. So I think that it's a thing that you have to remember. And about the squad, it's something that I think that it's one of the most strategic units that you can have as troops, because has a lot of different use and has a lot of different options to be applied to it, so it's really interesting. Instead, talking about the Sanguinary Guard, I think that it's one of the best units of this codex, because armed, remembering that there is the red first, with the Encarmine Sword on the Encarmine Axe, improved quite a lot in the case they assault the damages that they can do, because they try to hit quite hard the enemy unit. Moreover, if you remember that you can also give them something like the plasma pistols, it means that they can arrive, they can fire, and then they can assault, because you have also the stratagems to use the AP and then assault quite easily. So it becomes quite a freaking unit for the armored units opponent, so they are quite interesting this way. Moreover, if you remember that they can have a more releases if you bring with you a model with the standard, and moreover, if that model itself has a artifact standard, it becomes quite crazy, because it has both the bonus of the standard and the bonus of the artifact, so it can be really quite interesting in this way. The death mask for the Sanguinary Guard, I don't think they are quite good, but in general I think they are quite good themselves, because they have nice bonus to hit, but moreover a 2+ save, so they are quite interesting in this case. Really mobile unit with nice save that can be boosted too, so it's something really interesting in this case. And we can then talk about the Sanguinary Ascent, that it was the standard that I talked about, that gives you the option to have a mod that combat quite good, not so good, but not bad, at the same time as the banner, and to the banner you can apply also the artifact if you want. It becomes really quite interesting to apply and to use. So it's really interesting as a combination, and I suggest you to value. Maybe not this one if you're not interested in the Sanguinary Ancient, but anyway, a standard, in my opinion, it's something that can suit quite good to your army. Moreover, if you try to go on combat, because it gives you more bonuses if you go there. So it can be really interesting, because it can substitute a lieutenant if you play it with standard, and at the same maybe has the standard that has the artifact, so you can have the substitute of the lieutenant to have this one and have double role in one. Instead, talking about the aggressor squad, sincerely I don't find it quite interesting. It's one of the few units that I can find good to play. It's my limit, this one, because I don't find it in my style or in the different ways that I can play. They use to use the aggressor squad. Anyway, you have to remember that fire quite a lot, and in combat it's not bad, so you can have quite a lot of result with these ones. So you have to decide if can be useful or not. Sincerely, I'm not able to find this quite good, but anyway, it's really interesting. Moreover, because you have to remember their rules, so they can move and run, and anyway not have penalties, and can fire twice, so it can become really quite interesting in this way. Simply, I don't have yet found the right role to give them to play only it. And then we can talk about the Death Company in general, both the Dreadnought and the Death Company. I think that they are quite interesting, moreover because they are the stratagems that can improve quite a lot their usage, so they can be really interesting. Moreover, I think the Death Company normally won, because it's quite cheap considering what the damage can do, and at the same time can be quite crazy as thing, because it can take both the bolter and the chainsword, so can have both attacks and both a bit of fire. And anyway, even if take some special weapon, moreover I suggest you to think not the firing ones, but about the combat ones. For example, simple power weapon or X ones can become quite crazy. Moreover, if you think about take axis, because using axis and rest first combined with that bonus with the charge, each model can do quite a lot of attacks and being crazy as things. So I would suggest you to consider it. I think that I prefer the Sanguinary Guard in general, because I prefer their better save, their better wounds, their different equipment. I think that they are better, because the Encarminer weapons ones can do also multiple damage, so they can be both comfortable for single wound one and for damaging with more multi-wounds models. So I think that they are a bit better. But anyway, I want you to remember that that company is cheaper, so you have more attacks for a bit less points. So you can choose which one you prefer to do. So it's a sort of choosing only it. The interesting thing that I suggest you to remember that you can embark the jump pack ones on some vehicles. So for example, you can embark them on a radar. It means that you can both use the stratagems for disembark the unit from the vehicles, moving them, even running, then moving again and then charge, or even using the vehicle as a sort of protection, move them in the right position, and then using it to challenge the ones around, because it's quite interesting in this way. Remember such a thing. Anyway, that company it's become quite interesting to play and has a multi-role to play too. Anyway, I think that you can choose also if play them on foot, because they can be quite interesting to preserve certain objectives without problem. Anyway, I think that I prefer the jump pack ones because they are more fast to move, and so I prefer a bit. But anyway, they can be really interesting in playing them. And now, to create the suspense, we can pass to the next week. No, I don't want to get suspense. It's only that I'm realizing that this video is lasting quite long. So I prefer to separate this video in two parts. This first part this week, and the next week I realize the second part. I'll try to put in that part also the strategies to play the Blood Angels, but anyway, even if I'll not be able to put, because it will be coming also that video too long, I prepared the next week also a separate video to explain the strategies for the Blood Angels, in the way that you don't have to see a quite long video, but different videos, so you can concentrate on the parts that you like and not have a lot of time to see the video one after one. So, from deynonmod it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.